Okay, we have our block. It's all mounted in our boring fixture here. Now, when we put in the boring fixture, the one thing that we make sure of is we have these spacers that go in the main bearings on it and fit over top of our mandrel. Our mandrel through the block is a 2-inch solid mandrel, so it can't flex, it cannot move. The boring bar attaches to that. This boring bar is very accurate. A lot of people have these float tables and these fancy ones today. It makes the job quicker, but there's more room for error and not quite as accurate. When we put these in there and we set this up, the next thing we do is we will go and we will measure from our mandrel to the top of the block, and we'll do that at both ends of the block, and we will read the vernier on here. If you can't read one of these, you're in trouble. So in precision measuring, make sure you can do this. We will measure both ends. We will make sure that that is perfectly flat enough. This block right now is within 1 thou and a half from end to end with the mandrel in it and the spacers in it. So I know that the bores are going to be correct when I bore them because it's nice and flat on top. If it wasn't true to the crankshaft, I would have to redeck the top of this block and make it so it's square to the crank, so the bores are going to be straight up and down and not cocked one way or the other in there. I have it set up here now. It's all set. What we're going to do next is we're going to bring the boring bar down a little bit. If we turn the handle up here at the top, what that does is that centers the boring bar. There's 4 feet in there that move out and center the boring bar in the bore. So it's centered perfectly where it needs to be. When we get it centered, we tighten it down, and that clamps it to the block. It is pulling up on the mandrel in the mains. It is pulling everything tight together. It is sitting true and flat to the crank on the top of the block, and it is positioned so it's in the center of the bore. So we know when we rerun this bore with the new pistons that it's going to be absolutely perfect. The next thing we do is we bring our boring bar back up. We have our setting fixture and our cutter that we've already preset. We set that to our clearances we had here that we want to set this up. So we're going to bore this out. We're going to leave ourselves about 3/1000ths of an inch to hone to get us to the specs we want. That is going to fit inside of our boring bar. We will plug the boring bar in. Once again, this machine is older than me, but it's very accurate. And if it's set up right and used properly, it is as accurate or more accurate than today's fancy boring bars. The only ones with the fancy ones is they're all digital readout, so any monkey can run them. This here, you have to have a little bit of training. You have to be able to read your gauges and your tools, and when you can do that, you can bore these blocks absolutely perfect. I've been doing these things for years, and it works very well. So I brought it down so I'm close to the bore. I start the cutter. I'm going to bring the drive out. Now it's going to feed down. It's all automatic from here. It feeds down. Get close there, so it's going to cut. There it goes. It's just starting to cut. It's coming down that slow. We're going to hear when it gets through the top of the cylinder to where the ring wear is. Listen. It's going to start cutting a little thicker now. That is taking us from our 25 thou cut to right there we're making about maybe a 8 or 9 thou cut. So we weren't cutting hardly any material, but it's enough. It's going to clean this bore up perfect, and we'll be able to hone it and have the exact clearance that we need for these pistons that we're fitting to this engine. So this is going to take a couple minutes to run through. I'll come back near the end and we'll remove it, okay?